Good morning. This is video number 300. Can't believe it's been 300 vlogs so far. This is actually a pretty interesting one, hopefully. I am walking to my middle school here in Southern California, outside of LA in the suburbs, and I'm kind of replicating my morning walk to the middle school. And it's usually, I remember it's usually this kind of muggy and cloudy outside at 7:30 or so in the morning whenever people walk to school, and then usually the clouds would break and then it would actually be like really fully sunny during the daytime. I think we got run over here. So there was a school crossing here. I don't remember if there were crossing guards, but we just walked to school. A lot of us just walked to school from various neighborhoods. I'm not doing my full walk from my old house. That would be quite a bit longer, but this is kind of the final stretch to the middle school. And like all things, I remember the sidewalk being a lot bigger because I was a lot smaller, I guess. But yeah, the neighborhood around is, it's probably pretty unchanged. It's like a pretty solid neighborhood. It's like drizzling or something. I think it's like the mist or whatever. But yeah, so we'll see the middle school in a bit, but like many people, I think, middle school was probably not the best memories. I don't think you'll find many people who are like, wow, middle school is the best thing ever. But for me, I think it was especially bad, especially my first year. So in many places in the US, middle school is 3 years. It's 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And I came into here in 7th grade, which is in the middle of middle school. And that was an especially tough year because one, kids at that age, 11 or 12, they're going through kind of preteen, all the kind of usual growing pains and anxieties and all the, social peer pressures and all that stuff. But what compounded it was that I came in 7th grade and not 6th grade. So everybody already knew each other, right? Basically everybody in the school already knew each other, and there were a few new kids who came in every year, but like I think it's pretty hard for new kids to adjust right in the middle of that. Like I think if I came a year earlier, then there would be more kids from different kinds of schools, and then it wouldn't have been easy, but it would have been a bit easier. But like coming in the middle of 7th grade, coming in 7th grade was really tough because everyone had their groups of friends already, and I wasn't like the most social kid. So basically the whole year I didn't really make any friends. I had basically one friend I hung out with the whole time pretty much, and he was on his way out. Like he actually didn't mind being just kind of hanging out with me, or just being alone, just the two of us, or occasionally with other people, because like he didn't care about doing all the middle school social games and stuff, because he was moving to, I don't even know where he's moving to, but he knew his family was leaving that year. So I think he was only, that's a good question. I don't remember he was in that school the year before I came, or he wasn't. Maybe he was only there for a year also. I don't remember. But anyways, he didn't really give a crap because he was leaving. And that was what, that's how I think we got along, because everybody else was so entrenched in like forming their social cliques and groups and maintaining that and everything. And I found it was really hard to get into any kind of groups, even though I think what helped was that, I was in the more advanced courses for some classes. So like the people who were in the more advanced classes at least knew who I was, right? Even though I was, basically by myself and I wasn't really friends with anybody that first year. Here's a school. The sign is still pretty old. This is pretty cool. Yeah, the sign is still the old sign, but like the school itself, like behind me, got really renovated. So it's actually hard to recognize anything at the school itself because it's completely renovated. This was like 15 years ago. I have some videos from my high school that I'll link to, and the high school campus didn't change much, but this middle school, like pretty much the whole thing changed. So like it doesn't really make sense to show off anything in particular because everything changed completely. The one part I do want to show off, again, this campus is very outdoors, just like my high school was. Everything is, accessible outdoors. All the hallways are outdoors. It's a pretty cool open look, very typical of California or the Southwest in general, because again, the weather's so nice. So like you can see, everything is extremely outdoors. So the part that I actually want to show is the cafeteria here, which is behind me. And this is the place I actually remember. One, because it looks pretty much the same, but two, because this is where like all the, social groups and stuff hung out, right? So like, I still kind of remember, so here's a cafeteria behind me. It's just an open space, right? There's just a bunch of bench seating everywhere. There is an actual cafeteria where people can buy food, but a lot of us just brought our lunches. So there's a cafeteria area inside. And then in here, there is, like behind me is just like a bunch of benches. So basically, and then there's like a stage. I think there's like an little auditorium or stage. But basically students can just, kids can sit on the stage there. They can sit on the ground, on the various tables. People just kind of be on the ground here. And then there's various tables here. And I'm just gonna walk backwards trying to get right over. But like there's just all these tables, right, in this cafeteria area. And, everybody had their, place they sat, right? And this is where all the social groups in the cliques were. And it was kind of like known that you would always sit in a certain area and you wouldn't like sit in someone else's area because everyone had their own area. So like there's more here. So I remember exactly, but in 7th grade, right, my first year, where I was basically by myself and with one other person mostly, and maybe some random other kids who didn't really have friends. We sat somewhere around here. I don't remember the exact tables, the exact configuration. But yeah, we just hung out kind of here just by ourselves. Well, these benches are kind of small. They're way smaller than I remember. But yeah, we just hung out here, and then a year later in 8th grade, my one good friend left, and I was a bit concerned about that. But the good thing in 8th grade was that I was a lot more socially integrated into the group of kids who were in the more advanced, accelerated level, advanced level classes. So then I remember we sat here somewhere. I think this is the boys' locker room, I think. So we sat somewhere by there. This is like the table where all the, nerdy boys sat, like there and such. And 8th grade was fine. Like 8th grade ended up being fine because I think by then, people had already known me a bit better, and I was, a little bit more social, so that I could at least hang out with a group of kids who were in the more advanced classes, in the honors level class. Yeah, there's just like a field up here. There's not too much to see. I'm just gonna walk back around. This cafeteria is the main thing I remember. Everything else is just, it's either different or it's just kind of generic buildings and such. Not any really salient memories. But yeah, that was 7th grade. Like, I would just walk to school and then walk back, and I just walk by myself usually, or sometimes there's some other kids and stuff. And I remember like that year, that was probably the worst year, quote unquote, of my kind of childhood school time. And it was just because it was such a new environment, and it was like probably the worst time to be in a new environment, when in the middle of middle school, when kids had already formed cliques and they were so they were very much in their groups, right? And these lockers are cool too. These are pretty cool lockers. And again, it wasn't like, I'm sure other people had it worse, right? Like I was never explicitly bullied or any sort of really bad stuff. None of that stuff happened to me, fortunately. So I'm sure other kids had it much worse. But it was just that feeling of isolation. Like, this is kind of cool. Because they really renovated all of these buildings and such. But it was really this feeling of isolation. And like I remember walking to school every day. Like I would kind of dread going to school that first year, especially. This cool mural on the wall here. It's a very cool mural. I would kind of dread going to school because like I knew that I would walk to school and then I would just sit in class and like, not really know anybody or talk to anybody, and then just like waiting for the hours to pass, right? And like class time wasn't that bad just because it was a more controlled environment, right? Because like, you just sat in class and everyone just did stuff, and like, you know, I could really get into the work and such. But the worst times were like, you know, during the breaks, right? Between classes, when you'd have to like, you know, 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever in between classes. Like that was kind of the worst, because that was when kids, you know, love social, you know, the bell rings and then everyone's socializing and such. And I didn't really have anyone to talk to really, because my one friend was not in all my classes. So I would just kind of sit there by myself or like try to pass the time and stuff like silently. And then like lunch was also bad, because that was also another, you know, really big unstructured time. But you know, that year I got past, and then things started getting better and better, right? So just that first year in 7th grade moving here was, you know, it was not a fun year, but I guess it was necessary, because, you know, I needed that first year somehow. And then like 8th grade was much better. Like I felt that was much more socially normal year, finish up the middle school, and then going on to the high school and such. So I don't know, like I just wanted to walk around. I didn't really have a point in making this video beyond just kind of showing around the area. But yeah, like it was, you know, I don't have that many memories in my head now of that time, but yeah, it was definitely a hard transition. But you know, in retrospect, everything, I think everything turned out fine. Anyways, so I just wanted to walk around the neighborhood, kind of reminisce a bit and everything, and I'll see you all next time.